Here's Boardwalk Empire Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot. This is the beginning of Prohibition. Kind of a cool concept for a TV series. Terrence Winter comes from Sopranos 1 year later. It's kind of funny where Sopranos, which is the godfather of television shows in many regard, the new era of television, the two disciples, I guess, were Terrence Winter and Matthew Weiner. Matthew Weiner goes and does Mad Men. Terrence Winter goes and does Boardwalk Empire, which is kind of like a prequel, so to speak, of The Sopranos, like the birth of gangster in many ways. But really, it's the birth of Prohibition, and it's basically telling the story of how the criminal enterprises came to exist in the era of Prohibition. So let's say, for example, while I'm doing this podcast, 2013, coffee is banned. So all of a sudden, coffee is banned for whatever reason in our society. And of course, there's going to be an underground coffee enterprise. But it's also the beginning, too, where if that hypothetical happens, there's going to be some learning curves going on. There's going to be new ways, like how do you basically exploit this in the corrupt way? And that's kind of what Boardwalk Empire is going to be doing for us, especially in the first year. But the first scene of this kind of a terrific season and kind of a terrific episode, pilot, is that it starts in the women groups. We're introduced to Nucky, who is our lead, who is basically giving a speech at a women's group. And if people learn a lot about the history about Prohibition, the women's group were the linchpins of making this Prohibition law happen. Some can even argue that the Prohibition was the birth of feminism and women's rights in many ways because of their stand against this, and it brought women's organizations together. So Nucky's kind of the hero. He's kind of like, he's like at both sides of the coin, where he's telling a story about how alcohol kind of poisoned his family, but it's all BS. And here's a guy who's going to take advantage of the illegalization of alcohol. So then we also learn about James, his second guy, and basically he's almost the second lead of the show, where he just came out of World War I. There's kind of like some beef between him and Nucky, but there's somewhat love there as well, where it's like he's like the symbolism of the gray area of what Boardwalk Empire is doing, because Nucky tries to be good, and it keeps going on, especially in the first season, while he's a gangster at the same time. And even James tells him, like in the first 20 minutes of the pilot, you can't be a part-time gangster, Nucky. Either you're going to be with the gangsters, or you're going to be not with the gangster. Nucky doesn't really believe that, but James is the gray area character, where he was a hero in the World War I, but at the same time, he goes in the criminal world because he is a killer, and that's what the army taught him. The army taught him to be a killer, and he can't go into any sort of other way because he needs to keep killing, but not in a like nasty serial killer way. It's just that he understands that underground kind of like poisonous life that the world is, and Nucky's trying to get out of that while he's a criminal at the same time. Of course, what makes the show famous is that you got fictional characters mixed with real life characters, which makes the show all that fun. That's my review.